Halim, we had Brother Mansour and his beautiful family on in conversation with us some months back. It was early last year. We had a beautiful conversation, and both Brother Mansour and his wife, Sister Kathy, and they shared with the audience how they came to Islam. It was a very beautiful story, very beautiful and engaging story. Wondering what was the process that brought, and since I referenced that, let me say to those who didn't catch that broadcast, you can go to the Aafia Foundation's YouTube channel, and you can catch that in some of our other programs that we've done. Brother Halim, what was the circumstance that brought you to Islam, that led you to Islam? I think you said in 1979 it was?
No. I would have been a small child then.
I'm sorry.
1996.
1996. Yeah. I'm thinking about myself in my beginning of my own journey, but go ahead.
Alhamdulillah. So I want to start by first saying, I really want to thank Sheikh Mansour for what he just said, because that was a beautiful, and I actually started looking around for a pen and paper, because one of the things is that this is a difference between Islam and Christianity that needs to be reflected upon, is that in the Muslim world, outwardly we're all different, right? And really the best example I see of this is women covering, right? But outwardly we're all different, but inwardly we're the same. In those masajid that all look different, when we enter in, we all pray the same, right? Whereas a Christian church, while they're all cookie cutter and they all look the same, if you was to go anywhere in the world, you'd have to learn the etiquettes of that masjid, that church or this denomination. So outwardly they're the same, but inwardly they're different. Whereas the Muslims, outwardly we might be different, but inwardly we're all the same. MashaAllah, we're united at the heart. So I deeply appreciated that analogy, or that picture he drew. Alhamdulillah, thank you for that. As for my entrance into Islam, the fact is that alhamdulillah, it was a bumpy ride, and so I'll cut it very, very short, inshallah. My mother, as a small child, she started out as a Baptist. That's what she was raised as. Later, she got kicked out of that church, because one of the things about the Baptist church is that they say that they're not racist, and they all have black congregants and white congregants, but they don't allow interracial couples, right? And so my mom actually got kicked out of the church when I was a small child. And she went on her own soul searching, and she raised me to believe that, she doesn't know what it is, but there is a truth, right? And so at some point she became a Jehovah's Witness. In my formative years, I was a Jehovah's Witness myself until I hit my teens and I ran the streets. But, so I had this understanding that there is a truth. And so I was a seeker. I studied Christianity, I studied Buddhism, I studied Taoism, Wicca. I studied all of these different faiths, and I actually studied them. And I was locked up a lot. And so between the ages of 15 and 21, I spent more time locked up than I did on the streets. And at one point I was with these Nigerian Christians, and they told me all about Islam. I knew all about Islam. And so when I was, I believe I was 21, I was 20 at the time. So when I was incarcerated, and there was a Muslim and a Christian arguing outside of my cell, and I'm trying to read a book. I didn't have any faith at that time, and I'm trying to read a book, and they're arguing and getting loud. And so I got up and I said, "You're wrong and you're wrong." And I told the Christian why he was wrong, and he got angry and walked away. I told the Muslim why he was wrong, telling him all these things that I heard from the Nigerian Christians. And he laughed at me. The Muslim laughed at me and said I didn't know what I was talking about. So I didn't like that. Alhamdulillah. So I went and I started studying Islam. I got everything I could out of the jail library so that I could find something wrong, so that I could go to this Muslim and say, "Look, your religion is wrong." And well, it didn't work out that way. Alhamdulillah. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. And so I was left with a choice of either admitting that this is the truth and being a hypocrite, keep running the streets, or admitting that it's truth and entering into it. And so I didn't want to be a hypocrite. So I entered Islam while I was locked up. And there's a lot of funny stories involved. Like when I first went to take my Shahada, the brothers were arguing. They didn't want to give me my Shahada. They was like, no, you do it. No, you do it. I had to wait an extra week because of my whiteness, right? Nobody wanted to give the white guy his Shahada. And this was an understanding. And even in prison, like we had a homework assignment, and it was what brought you to Islam. And you'd be amazed how many people got up and said, because I hate white people, right? So there was this experience. There's just this reality. But there's actually a lot of, I mean, that's the gist of it. When I came home, I had an opportunity, of course, to go back to who I was. I didn't tell anybody I was Muslim because I didn't want anyone to think that I entered Islam in jail for protection. Or I did this. That was my identity, going to jail, coming home, going to jail. So I didn't want anybody thinking that I was scared or anything like that. So I kept my Islam to myself. Nobody on the street knew I was Muslim. And then when I came home, I was like, no, I'm a Muslim. So I had that choice to go back if I wanted. And my real entry to Islam was when I came home and everything was open to me, and I said, no, you know, I'm a Muslim. When I verbalized it on the streets, there's a lot of story to this.
Interesting. Interesting. You know, brother, you and I have something in common. My journey to Islam began as a teenager in lockup. I was in the Burlington County Jail, and I was 17, and the jail had a little library in it. And subhanAllah, up until that time, I was the kind of person who, if, you know, I was much like Malcolm. You know, when I was in school, before I started getting in trouble, you know, I was a very exceptional student. But then, you know, once I hit the skids, you know, something very traumatic happened in my life, and it just took me off, you know, into a self-destructive path, and which again culminated in 17 years of age, stealing a car, subhanAllah, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and trying to drive to Washington, D.C. You know, this was during the May Day festival, and having stolen a car that had bad tires.
Oh.
But it was the qadr of Allah. You know, I ended up on the New Jersey Turnpike, you know, getting out of the vehicle, you know, and I'm starting to hit. There was a lot of hitchhikers out on the road at that time, trying to make it to Washington for the big Memorial Day festivals. And I got my hand out. I saw the police officer come up.
Oh no!
To the vehicle. I was about maybe a quarter of a football field away. He obviously saw me walking with my briefcase. I mean, my suitcase, and he comes around. He asked me if, you know, if I was in that car. I said no. He tells me to get into his cruiser. He backs up, and subhanAllah, I had the knockout keys in my case. He opens up my case, you know, he searches through it. I had a knife about this long, you know, it was just a souvenir knife, but I had it, and it was considered a deadly weapon because of the length. And then these keys, and subhanAllah, you know, it took me a while to have to get this car to turn over. But when he took the keys and he went back to the car, it turned over right away. And he got this big grin on his face.
Oh.
Never forget it. This big grin on his face. I got you now. And I ended up in the Burlington County Jail. But this was the qadr of Allah. This is how something good can come out of adversity. I ended up being drawn to the, you know, little library that they had. And the book that caught my attention in the library was, guess what?
Autobiography of Malcolm X.
The Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Allahu Akbar.
I took that book back to my cell, began reading it, and that book changed my life. You know, and it's a reminder, you know, of something that Malcolm said. He said, if a man is properly motivated, You know, for some of us, this is what it takes. If a man is properly motivated in prison, he can change his life. This was my change. And I got out, I joined the Black Panther Party in New Haven, Connecticut. And then from there, after about 6 or 7 months, I ended up going into the Nation of Islam. And the rest, as they say, is history.